Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Adam.
Today, we are reviewing the new special
Marvel
from
special.
Marvel Studios, the first ever, I believe, Marvel quote-unquote TV special.
Yeah.
Direct to Disney Plus. That is about 55 minutes long, depending on if you count the credits or not, I believe, called Werewolf by Night. So a little seasonal reach into kind of the back catalog of Marvel, I believe. Or maybe I just think it's the back catalog because this is very much an homage to old 30s and 40s horror movies.
Yeah.
So, Adam, would you like to tell the people what it's about?
Indeed. Werewolf by Night follows a lycanthrope superhero who fights evil using abilities given to him by a curse brought on by his bloodline.
Yeah. So, like we mentioned before, this is a whole new set of characters in Marvel. You don't need to have seen any other MCU stuff in order to enjoy Werewolf by Night or understand what's going on or anything. And it's 55 minutes, fits very much in the vein of kind of old made-for-TV specials that you'd usually get based off some type of existing property.
Yeah.
Like the Charlie Brown Halloween special, or like a lot of TV shows would have their
like
sort of
Simpsons Treehouse of Horror is a big one, I think, that comes to mind.
Something like that as well. So I was very curious going into this, and it's getting a lot of good buzz and good reviews from the interwebs and critics and all kinds of people seem to be enjoying Werewolf by Night. And what we get is a black and white shot. You okay?
Yeah, so I was reading a review quick on like Letterboxd, and it was very short, and it just hit me right. But
sure, yeah, those can happen for sure. They can get you on there.
Yeah, sorry. It opens with that it's black and white shots. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so we get the black and white 30s, 40s, like kind of Universal Studio horror movie feel and look and everything, kind of with the introduction and the way the credits rolled. Like all of it was like big time throwback to like early Hollywood horror movies, which I thought was really cool.
Thing and the early like
Man Thing.
Yeah, Man Thing, and they came from like in the swamp or whatever that I'm thinking
Creature
of, like
from the Black Lagoon.
Thank you. I was like, I don't know how I'm not getting
or
this,
the Wolfman.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of that old stuff. So I thought the beginning was really cool, like just the way the credits were different and kind of the narrator sort of giving us the little intro and like backstory into the world, and then lead it right into this Bloodstone Temple gathering where a bunch of monster hunters are here to inherit and or compete for new ownership of the Bloodstone because its previous owner has died.
And the Bloodstone is this magical object that grants the user some sort of abilities. We don't know what they are, but we know that it
helps abilities. You to be the most badass of the monster killers, which I think is kind of lame because if you're the only one who has that, then like of course you're the best one.
Yeah, I mean, it's like saying Iron Man was the best like original, or he was the best fighter in the cave that he was in, and it's like, well, no shit, he had a fucking super suit, like
right, yeah,
he better be.
Yeah, exactly. But in this case, it is designed to have the most worthy inherit the Bloodstone. I really liked the first. It's hard for me to tell exactly how long this took, but like, kind of basically the introduction to everything and kind of the setup to the game that they play.
Yeah.
I thought all of that was really cool. Like kind of walking into the temple and everybody kind of being like, "Oh, how are you?" And
this is who I am. Since I've seen you. I know we don't do first names here, but hello again. Like
yes, like that. All that with like the feel of it, like the kind of ambiance of like the temple and the look of all of it with all the sort of monster heads on the wall.
Yeah,
really cool. And of course, we have Gael Garcia Bernal as the lead, Jack Russell, which is just a kind of funny name for this character.
Especially for like, it's a funny name for him. And then like Gael Garcia Bernal is like an interesting, obviously a little different type of name. And he's Jack Russell. Like it's it's just kind of like, okay, you're a generic.
And then
about it.
Laura Donnelly plays the daughter of the deceased I don't know what he was called, Lord
Patriarch,
Bloodstone
we'll call
or
him. Yeah,
something.
who knows?
I can't remember. Her name is Elsa Bloodstone. Harriot Sansom Harris plays Verussa Bloodstone, her stepmother, kind of in the vein of the Disney Wicked Stepmother category. And then you just kind of get a nice mix of people who I wasn't familiar with, or I recognize maybe some of the faces, but I can't really say where from. Just sort of rounding out the cast, the small cast of monster hunters who now need to go into this labyrinth and kill this big monster, and whoever does it gets the bloodstone. And that's the setup to this longish, special, shortish movie that we've got. And what was kind of amusing, I started laughing at myself about halfway through this because this is called Werewolf by Night. So there's a certain element of this that you're just going to kind of see coming.
Yeah.
However, after I was like 10 minutes into it, I just sort of forgot what this was called, and I decided not to like pause it or look it up or anything and just keep going. So I just totally forgot that a part of this story is about a werewolf.
Yeah.
And was just kind of wondering. I was like, ooh, where is this going?
I was waiting for the monster they were going to fight to be a werewolf. And I was like, huh, well, well, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Oh yeah, duh. Like,
exactly. That was kind of the feeling that I had. It's sort of similar to like forgetting the title of a Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah, like Monsters Unleashed or something like that,
or just like and the witch's ghost and being like, wait, there's a witch in this movie?
Yeah.
And yeah. So that I was kind of laughing at myself because I was like, of course there's a werewolf in this thing. That's what it's called. It's on the poster. It kind of tells you. It's not really trying to keep secrets or anything like that, which I did appreciate because it kind of gives away any semblance or any kind of a twist is sort of just given away in the title and the poster, which is fine.
Yeah, it's not trying to like lead you away from thinking one thing or trying to subvert anything and go another direction. It's only 50-ish minutes long. It's got to get to the point.
Yeah, it does play around a little bit with the fact that some characters don't really know what's happening.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it doesn't really try to trick the audience or anything. So I mean, that's basically all I want to talk about plot-wise because we're not going to spoil this for anybody because it is short. If you want to go check it out, it's really easy and quick to do. But I guess for me, I thought the feel and the look of everything was really cool. There were more interesting shots in this than you usually see in Marvel stuff, particularly in one case when like they use kind of shadows and lightning to like show not the werewolf changing like close up, but just like through its shadow, you see it transforming shape. I thought that was really cool. That was an interesting shot. And they played around with the black and white really well. And
yeah,
that part I really appreciated.
Yeah, that allows them to show maybe some gore or some violence that you normally wouldn't be able to do because there's basically the rule in movies that if it's red and it counts as blood, like you can't really have that much of it. But if it's like you're fighting an alien and they have blue blood, show as much of it as you want. So that kind of aspect, and in the same vein of that changing using the shadows, it kind of reminds me, or it harkens back to when you were doing old horror movies, you weren't allowed to show like a murder or like someone actually dying. So you saw like the knife like going this way via a shadow.
Like Psycho, yeah.
Yeah, like Psycho. So that was a nice homage. And it's like, oh, I appreciate that we don't always need to see the most like graphic of things. There's art in not doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. In like having those restrictions and finding interesting ways to portray what's going on screen without like crazy CGI or anything like that, which this has, but they kind of try to do that thing that like Mank did where it's sort of like CGI and black and white and it's digital, but they're trying to make it look like this old 30s film,
like practical effects.
Yeah. And there are areas where I thought that was better done than not. There were some parts where there were like close-ups of like the monster heads in the temple, which clearly they didn't build that set.
Yeah.
So like that part of it, I was like, okay, that didn't really work. But there were other parts that I thought it looked pretty cool. What did you think of the look of the werewolf itself? Because that I was very 50-50 on that because we've seen cooler werewolves in movies before. But at the same time, they were trying to invoke this era.
Yeah.
And this sort of like everything back then just it very much looked like it was like, yeah, this is a guy in a costume. Like
yeah,
we know
you have to go with
right. because like that was the best they could do, really. And that was kind of the look that they gave this, which I thought it fits very well for what this is. If this was a movie and like something that was maybe even in theaters or like a series, I don't know how well that would work, but I think
They
for
would have
something
changed
short
for
like
sure.
this, it works well enough given how they're shooting everything else.
So I actually really liked it. It's obviously it's not my favorite. Like we have seen cooler werewolves or ones that are more
Yeah,
like dog-like or more defined in that way. This is more human-ish, almost like not Teen Wolf-esque, but sort of. Like it's
it
just
kind of reminded me of that.
yeah. And
I
obviously
mean, the
you want to
Wolfman
see
too. It has
yeah,
that look
you
as
want to
well.
see Gael Garcia Bernal like as that character instead of being like, okay, well, if we just might as well CGI him if we're not going to show his face. So I
Yeah.
liked that it was like a little bit different. I just it's so different than what Marvel has been doing, so that I think it was just a nice breath of fresh air. And I really just enjoy that it's not all super CGI'd up.
Yeah.
So when you're doing an homage to a certain era, like I think sticking with the effects of that era are the greatest way to do it. So I didn't really find an issue with it. I mean, again, we've seen cooler stuff, but I liked
Mhm.
it. I
Yeah,
liked the
I think that's
monster, I
totally
should
fair.
say. Yeah,
My real issue with this was more that it's very much style over substance.
very
The
much.
story never grabbed me. I didn't find any of the characters particularly interesting. And also with this sort of order of monster killers that they kind of talk about, that felt like these people didn't really know each other. I didn't feel the weight of like this long history of
Yeah,
monster hunters that they kind of tell you exists in the opening credits and the opening narration. But it all just felt a little bit like these people have never seen each other before and now they're here and they don't know each other. And then this stuff happens and then it's over and then, okay, bye.
yeah. It feels like, oh, we don't know each other, but we sort of do because I remember you. You've got like 22 confirmed kills or something of monsters, and it's like I know you by your reputation, sort of thing. But it also like doesn't give any gravity to that because you're like,
Right.
oh, you're pretty cool, and that's as deep as that gets.
Yes.
And it's
I
like,
can't
oh,
remember anybody's name.
yeah, I don't remember anybody's name either.
Which is, I don't know, whatever, it's fine. But yeah, I just found it hard. It didn't stick with me, and there weren't ever any individual moments on screen where I was just like very into what was happening. It was
Yeah,
cool to look at, but the story didn't do much. I will say the way that it ends feels like made this feel like it could be a really interesting prequel for a series.
yeah.
You know
There's
what
a
I
light.
mean?
I don't think that it'll return, but I liked the universe that it's created, or like this little space, whatever you want to call it, where
Yeah.
the temple is and using monsters and stuff. That's a really cool premise that they could like shape into something else, and it doesn't need to be a full-fledged like 10 episode series. It could be like a couple episode thing and like only confined to that and like never approached again. It's such a cool style and stylized world that like I want more of that, but I don't necessarily need more of like exactly what happened.
Right. I
Yeah.
do wonder if anybody from here is going to show up in Blade once that ever comes out, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to see.
I don't know. I know that they're remaking that, which
Having
is
some issues, it seems like, yeah.
awesome. Well, it sounds like they're looking for a new director, which is disappointing because the original Blade with Wesley Snipes is dope, albeit strange, and definitely not like comic booky as we would consider it today.
Right.
But I think a lot of this like style and maybe style over substance, and characters maybe not feeling how we want them to feel is partially because it's a TV special and it's only like under an hour. And
Yeah.
B, because the director for this is largely a composer.
Yep.
His name is, I'm going to butcher this, but Michael Giacchino. Giacchino.
Giacchino, I would think.
Okay. But he did music for Ratatouille, Up, Star Trek, Star Wars, A Rogue One Story, Thor, Love and Thunder, Lightyear, Jurassic World Dominion, The Batman. So all of those came out this last year. Spider-Man No Way Home, An American Pickle, which we reviewed last season, Jojo Rabbit, just a ton of things.
Scoring a lot of Marvel stuff
Been
too.
scoring a ton of stuff. So he knows exactly what his aesthetic is. He knows exactly the world he wants to create. And that is why it's so effective. I mean, this feels more like a vehicle for him to get into a new directing role or a better directing role if it's with Marvel than anything else. And that's fine. That's great. I like what this is. It's just not like super like spooky or not super like
Right.
I'm not gonna necessarily watch this again unless it's just like on somebody's like Halloween party in the background. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. So with that, I think we can dive into the stars.
Yeah.
So
We'll be
we'll
right
be
back.
back shortly with our star ratings. Okay. I would like to go first.
Okay.
So I think you're going to be slightly more positive on this than I am. So we can end on a higher note.
Sure.
So I am giving this a 2.5 out of 5. I thought it was fine, but given how much people seem to be enjoying this and all the things that I was reading about, like really cool new direction for Marvel. It is a new direction. I just didn't connect with any of the characters or the story really, but the world was kind of cool. So I didn't hate it or anything. And I'm a huge fan of Gael Garcia Bernal for several things that I've seen him in. So that was kind of fun. And I find this interesting just more as an introduction to a different side of Marvel rather than the story that we got as that introduction.
Yeah, I would agree.
So if they have another thing that looks like this and is like, oh, the same world as this, I'm going to check it out. But I don't feel the need to watch this again.
Yeah. I would agree. I think 2.5 stars is, I mean, on our list as you saw, if you're watching us on YouTube, the 2.5 is okay. And I think that's a really good for where this should sit. I don't think it does anything particularly well besides its aesthetic. The world building is good, but not great. Again, it's just too short to do anything with, but that's what you get with a TV special. So I think this is more of a vehicle to do things with. So I guess that'll just lead into my stars. I'm giving this a 3, but I'm giving this a 3. Yeah, my bad. I clicked it. Because of its aesthetic and because I think this is such a good homage to the early horror, early film, basically all the black and white. Like horror is one of the easiest productions that you can do. It's why there's a lot of like what we would consider probably terrible horror movies.
It's cheap.
Because it's cheap. But I think people like in my parents' age range or even like a little bit younger, so like late 50s or something like that, would really like this. I think this is going to remind them of an era that they grew up with television and, you know, not being able to see all the gore and the horror that we have come to know of modern cinema. So I think if you catch this on Disney Plus and you go, oh, I wonder what that is, and you're sitting with your parents or something, by all means, check it out. But it's not going to do anything special for you as far as like plot or story wise or anything like that. I would love to see an accompaniment with this of like another little special, maybe next year that builds upon this. But standalone, this is a 2.5, 3. I'm going with a 3, just giving it the up on the aesthetic and the vibe.
Yeah.
So
all right, 2.5 from me, 3 stars from Adam, and I think that's it. Is it your turn to put a wrap on the show?
It is indeed.
Take it away.
This is my costume. I'm a homicidal maniac. They look just like everybody else.